Hello YouTube, Chrome Freak here. The M1 Carbine. First of all, let's say I hope everybody out there had a very Merry Christmas. I hope Santa was good to all of you. I hope you guys got everything you wanted. But most of all, I hope you spent time with your family and your loved ones and made memories. I really do. I had my kids over. It was wonderful. We had a great dinner and I enjoyed it. And I also hope everybody has a wonderful new year. Okay. The M1 Carbine. I've had these out a few times, and if you go way back, when I first started making videos, actually I believe it was the first real firearm video I ever did. I did on this Plainfield M1 Carbine right here, which is a commercial carbine. And then when I bought this one here a few weeks ago, a month ago, whatever it was, I brung it out and I showed you guys. And we go way back, like I said, when I first made this one, I had a lot of requests on guys asking me about numbers on them and serial numbers and markings and what to look for when you want to buy an M1 Carbine. I am by no means an expert on anything, to be honest with you, much less an M1 Carbine, but I have read a lot on the M1 Carbine. It's a rifle I've loved my entire life. There's something about it, the nostalgia, it's part of America, the World War II, the history, just everything about it I love. Well, I had gotten this Plainfield right here, which is an American-made M1 Carbine, made, by the way, to mil spec, with a lot of military parts on it that were originally made by the same companies that made the carbines for World War II. And Ivor Johnson, who bought out Plainfield, they bought a lot of the parts through the government or through the companies themselves, and that's how they assembled their carbines here. Now, I'm not going to rush this video. I'm going to try to take my time. I'm not going to try to make a long video. However, I do want to make a thorough one, because if there's guys out there that are searching and looking for an M1 Carbine and love military surplus rifles like I do, maybe I have a little information that might help you if you're a newbie, and maybe somebody will comment and teach me some things, because I got to tell you, when it comes to these rifles, nothing is for certain, especially with these M1 Carbines. The markings are everywhere and different, even by same manufacturers. As an example, IBM. This is an IBM receiver. They might have a marking on this receiver, and you take another IBM M1 Carbine receiver and look at it, and the marking's in a different spot. It's just like amazing that nothing was really laid out perfect. The only one thing for sure that on all of them is underneath the front sight, you're going to find the maker, the manufacturer's name, and the serial number right here on the back. The serial number will usually be in plain sight, and if not, it will probably be marked right in front of it, right here on the receiver. And there are some rifles out there that when they change the original front sights, because this is not the original, there were many changes made to these rifles over the years, during the war, before the war, during the war, after the war, all the way up through. And when they changed the sights and could no longer see some of them serial number, they would stamp it somewhere else. So some of them might have two serial numbers, but they're always going to be right here at the top of the receiver. Usually right behind it with the manufacturer's name literally under the front sight, that you kind of got to take a light and look for it. Now the commercial Plainfield has their marking right there, PMC, and the serial number is actually not on top right here, but it's going to be down on the side of the receiver. But everything else is mil spec. I can actually take the parts from this rifle and put them onto this Plainfield right here. No problem, everything. Okay, we're going to start. Let's safety check these rifles. This one is clear, safe direction, pull the trigger. Safe direction, pull the trigger. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get the Plainfield out of the way just for a minute, and I'm going to be bringing it back into camera and out of camera to show you guys some differences, because one thing with the Plainfield, it was completely up to date when it built in the 60s. To mil spec, it was to the military spec of that time, where this one still has some differences that were never upgraded. Okay, we're going to start right away. We're going to start to take it apart. To do that, you got to loosen the screw here on the barrel band, which no, I didn't do. Take it all the way. It'll be a point where it gets hard and you don't need to take it down no more. You'll just be forcing the screw out for no reason. Now let's start with the barrel band right off the bat. There's 3 types of barrel bands. Originally, when this rifle was designed and first started being produced for World War II, the original barrel band was just a plain band that went around here. There was no screw, it was just flat all the way around. Then the Type 2 barrel band was just the band with the screw. Then the Type 3 is what you're looking at on this one, and the playing field, it has the bayonet lug on it. Now, as far as I know from what I've read, all the rifles of World War II did not have a bayonet lug on it. However, that could have changed late in the war. But when this came off the assembly line, this is a change right here. So when you hear guys want to say that, oh, I got all matching numbers, there's no matching numbers. First of all, there's only one serial number on this gun, one, and it's right here on the receiver. Everything else might have markings, it might have numbers, it might have stamp marks, but there's no matching numbers. And let's say this IBM receiver right here, this is very important. This is why I want to take my time with this video, because there's a lot of con artists out there and there's a lot of rip-offs. And there's a lot of people that just don't know. Even if IBM, this is an IBM receiver, it's a Rockola barrel. There were a lot of times during the war, you gotta understand at that time and age, this whole country came together as one for World War II. There was no competition between companies. They had all already been awarded by the government, a contract to build a certain amount of rifles, each company. So there was no competition and everybody banding together to win this war. So IBM receiver right here, maybe they're running low on barrels. They call up Rockola and say, hey, you guys got extra barrels because we're going to have to shut down the assembly line. We're about out. Rockola would send them some barrels. So this gun may have never had nothing but a Rockola barrel on an IBM receiver. We'll never know. That's part of the great mysteries of the M1 Carbine. A lot of these guns, like I said, were broke down in the parts bins after the war, even during the war when the changes were made in the sights and the barrel bands and the slide itself and many other things. They were broke down at that time. It wasn't done one rifle at a time. They break these things down into parts bins and just put them back together. That was the beauty of this design, was everything was interchangeable among the manufacturers. So let's go ahead and start and take this thing apart. I'm going to take this down. What you got to do is there's a little locking lever right here. You're going to have to depress that. When you depress that, you push up and force the barrel band right off. It's that simple. And it just slides right up onto the barrel. I don't want to scratch. I'm trying to be really easy with it. Okay, the upper foreguard comes right off. I'll set that off to the side. We'll talk about it in a minute. We're going to talk about every part of this beautiful rifle. Okay, the stock. This is a Winchester stock. Right here, and I know you're not going to see it, especially I don't have micro and the lighting and all that, but it says WRA. That's Winchester Repeating Arms. Underneath of it, it's GHD, and that GHD is Guy H. Drew. He was the inspector at that time for the Army Ordnance. Now, he didn't personally inspect every rifle. It would have been impossible. There were 6 million of them made. But they put the stamp. So every M1 carbine of World War II era, somewhere on that rifle, should be GHD. Not on all, but most. Here, once again, most. At least 4 major companies I know for sure have the GHD on them. Okay. Now, with that said, when you're looking at an M1 carbine and you're looking at stocks on them and is this gun authentic? That's what you want to know. You want something that's authentic. There's a lot of people out there, unscrupulous people, that did a lot of knockoffs. They stamped parts. What they did was they tried to make guns appear what they're not. Oh, this rifle is all IBM. So they'd take IBM stamp and they would, they'd cheat. And unfortunately, a lot of people get caught up into that. So doing your homework on the M1 Carbine, I really highly suggest it. And that's all I'm doing here is just giving you guys some pointers that I've learned over the years by reading and studying about this rifle. And I surely do not know everything about it, but I know enough. Okay, right here on the Winchester stock, on this little cross piece right here, on most of them, all of them that I've seen anyway, Winchester, there's a W stamped right into the wood right there also, as well as, like I showed you before, the WRA here with the cross cannons. Now, the cross cannons emblem also is different, and it's different from some manufacturers to the next, but they're pretty close to being the same. I highly suggest you, it's the website I'm about to give you. This guy over there has been a lifelong M1 Carbine guy, and it's the most informative website I've ever been to on M1 Carbines, and I said it on my first video. It's Bavarian M1Carbines.com, and I highly suggest you go there if you're in the market to buy an M1 Carbine, because he's straight up, he's honest, and he lets you know everything. Now on these stocks, when we gave them to certain countries as military aid, like Germany and many other countries, they would put their own markings on stock. So what I'm trying to show you is basically the original manufacturer's markings, and then maybe some other things you might look for. There might be markings down inside of here or here on the stock. But mainly, if it's a Winchester, it's going to be marked there. This piece right here is not the original first stock either. The stocks underwent some changes. This was higher. Let me show you on the one that's not taken apart. Right here, there used to be originally the wood went higher up into here, and you wouldn't see the slide right here. Well, you'd see it, but not as much. And that piece had a problem of breaking off. It would always crack because it's such a thin piece of wood there. And when it cracked, sometimes it would crack down into the rest of the, it would crack the rest of it. So what they did was they eliminated that, and they made a deeper cut right here, which exposes the entire slide arm, but it's fine, it doesn't do anything. But this is little things you need to look for. If you find one that's still got the full wood here and it's in great shape, God bless you, good find, grab it. That's just some of the changes. The oiler, right here, we have an oiler inside this one. I'm not gonna take it out. This is called an oval cut. Certain ones, I believe inland, I know inland for a fact, but I'm not sure about others, but they originally had what was called an eye cut. There was actually more shaped like an eye than the oval that you're seeing right here. Now, as you can see also on the playing field, it is an oval cut. Also, on some, but not all, right here at the bottom of the stock, what you call a pistol grip, there might be a P there. And that was just basically inspector marking it. But once again, not on all, but some. And I've seen them on Winchester stocks. However, this one don't have it. But this is definitely a Winchester stock. So let's put this off to the side, and we're going to move on to other parts of the rifle. This is going to be kind of long. Now the upper foregrip. This one is a 2 rivet. There are some that are 4 rivets. This one is a 2. On the playing field is also a 2. The reason they went to 4 rivets, or some of them used 4 rivets, was to secure it on there better. And I had a problem with the playing field. If you go back to my original video, the little piece in here, the little metal band that hooks in right there on your receiver, and then the barrel band will go over this end, had a problem of these rivets breaking out. So you only got 2 of them, you have 4 of them, it's a lot stronger. Okay, this upper foreguard, although it matches that Winchester stock perfectly, and I mean perfectly, it is a Rockola upper foregrip. And right here, I know you're not going to be able to see that, but it's RMC, and that's a Rockola. And they match perfectly, and once again, everything is interchangeable. Let's go ahead and take this apart. What we're going to do is we're going to take the slide spring or recoil spring, whatever you like to call it, out. Pull it back. And if you guys want to know the disassembly and all that, I have a video of, if you go way back once again, on my videos, I got a complete disassembly and reassembly. It's more of a field strip of this firearm. However, I've had several requests to also do a complete strip, completely take apart the trigger group and the bolt, which I will probably do. There's a pin right here, comes out, And the whole trigger group comes off just that easy, and then the bolt will come right out. Of course, unless you're on camera. But it'll come right out just like that. And the bolts are different. This is more of a rounded bolt, if you could see it. I know you can't here. Maybe I'll do that when I actually take the bolt, do a detailed, complete disassembly of the bolt. I'll show you. This is more of a flat surface. This is more of a rounded. This matches kind of the age of the receiver. And by the way, the serial number on the back of the receiver on the website that I gave you the name to, he's got a listing of what manufacturers were giving what serial number sequence. And by this serial number right here, I know that this rifle was built in very early 1943. Now in 1943, a lot of changes were made to these rifles. Actually, it was a 42. I might be wrong on that. I've got so many numbers in my head here because I was doing other things with numbers. It might have been 42. I'd have to look at it. But on most barrels, but not all. Here you go. Once again, this is a Rockola barrel. It's stamped right here, Rockola. Also on the gas port, right here on this side, Rockola is stamped on it. Now, Rockola themselves, on some of their rifles, right under their name, they would put a month and a year. As an example, 2 of 42, February 1942. Would be marked right there. However, this one does not have that. It just has Rockola and Rockola here, which is fine. It just goes to show that when it comes to these carbines, not everything was as it should. Everybody did everything a little bit differently, even inside of the same manufacturer. And that's what makes things so hard, but yet also makes them so fun to go through these rifles with. Okay, let's take the slide. Once again, I think there's 4 different variations. Actually, I think there was 6 different variations on the slide. Most of them dealt with right here. Now let's get the playing field back into view. And as you can see, you're going to see some major differences here. If you can see right here, this is a long, very long tapered, very aggressively tapered right there at the very top of the slide. This one is not so much. It is tapered, but nowhere near as aggressively. And this is the latest one that came out, and Plainfield used it when they built these rifles in the 60s or late 50s, early 60s. This helped to deflect the spent casings away from the rifle, where they had more of a problem here. They also have certain ones called the half moon. And this one here is the half moon right here, where this one, if you look at it, is completely different. It's almost square, straight coming up square. So there's a big difference right there. And this is, once again, goes with the rifles, and you'll see it during World War II era M1 carbines. Not only the commercial ones made in the 60s, they're going to vary right on through the 40s, right on through the war and up into Korea and even Vietnam. Some of these rifles were used. But inside, right here on the slide, you're going to find a letter stamped in there, and that's usually going to be the manufacturer who made this slide is going to be stamped in there. There might also be numbers. In this case, on the back, there's numbers right here. These numbers have nothing to do whatsoever with the manufacturer. These numbers came from whatever country this rifle went to after or even during the war, and we were giving military aid to people, or even police departments here in the U.S. got some of these rifles. However, I know this particular one was definitely used out of country because right here is stamped on the side of the barrel, the importer. Now, before 1968, the Gun Control Act of 1968, nobody had to put the importer's name on there. After 1968, that became law. So you might have one that was an imported rifle, but you'll never know, really, unless you have other markings to go by on it. A lot of them took right here. At the top of the receiver right here will be marks in German, or might be symbols. There's not only numbers, like I said, but symbols, letters. It could be anything. And if you go to the website that I told you about, once again, I'm going to keep pushing this website because the information there is endless, and the guy knows what he's talking about. He's phenomenal. He could, basically, you could find out the country of origin on most. On this one here, because it was imported, and I can't remember, I think it was anyway, it was imported to Alex, Virginia. I can't remember because I was done so much studying here in the last few days, but this one came from various, so he couldn't pinpoint it to a certain country, But going by the numbers that are marked right here on the slide, and also very faintly, you are not going to be able to see it. You're not going to be able to see this either. But I got numbers that are marked right here. And because of that, I'm thinking Bavarian. Although there's no symbols, a lot of the Bavarian ones had symbols. So it's going to be very hard to tell exactly where this rifle was imported from. But by it being imported, I do know that this rifle was a war rifle and authentic. Now when you say authentic, we don't know how many times these things were taken down and put into parts bins and put back together again. We'll never know. Somebody who acts like they do know, I want to tell you to really be leery of them, because it's very hard to know. And the gentleman, Jim, at the website I'm telling you about, tells you not to really change your parts. Like I can go buy, let's say I got the IBM receiver here. Well, let me go buy an IBM barrel, stick it on there, buy an IBM stock, stick it on there, and now I got everything IBM. Well, now what you're doing is you're actually hurting it instead of helping it. This is the way this rifle came back to this country. This is more than likely the way the rifle went to whatever country it went to from the war. So if you want to keep it authentic, don't change the parts out. Or if you want to do that, keep these original parts, so you can put it back together the way you bought it. This is just such a hard, it's really hard to pinpoint things when it comes to M1 carbines. When it comes to M1 carbines, you can be sure of one thing. There's nothing to be sure of. And that's a fact. Now the trigger group itself, I'm going to find markings on here. There were so many different subcontractors that made so many different parts, so many of these different parts for these rifles, and then given to the main contractor who would assemble everything. And the main contractors usually made their own receivers and barrels, but not always, once again. Same thing with the bolt, the slide, the springs, the pins, I mean everything. It's amazing. Now the sights, there were 3 different type of front sights. Originally, when they first started making the carbines, it was a flip-up little sight. Then they went to this sight that you got windage, elevation, and windage. Then they were milled. This happens to be a milled one. The one on the playing field is a stamped. They look almost identical, except this is a stamped, and this one actually has numbers on it. I need my reading glasses on to read those numbers, but it goes from 1.5 all the way up to 3, and the 3 is being 300 yards. And this is a stamped sight, this is a milled sight. The milled sight would be proper to the World War II era, and then they kind of went to the stamped, I think, late into the war, and by Korea, most of them were the stamped versions, although they still used the milled. There was nothing wrong with them, they did use them. But it was some of the upgrades. The same thing with the bolt. They changed the bolt over time. And most of the reason they changed things was either improvements to how the gun would function, or the ease of manufacturing. So a lot of the times, for safety reasons, I know they improved the extractor. It's a free-floating firing pin. And like I said, you get into the trigger group here, and basically all these parts, once again, I could take that playing field apart and I can mix these things up, close my eyes and put them back together, and it don't matter. Everything's going to fit together and everything's going to work together, although things are different. Okay, your magazine release right here. Most of the magazine releases originally was a push button. It did not, oh, I'm sorry, that was the safety. The magazine release here, these were changed. A lot of them, you're going to see the letter M stamped on them. In fact, on the playing field, this one has, I know you can't see it, but it does have the letter M. M standing for modified. And what they did was they thinned out the metal there, making the magazine release easier to push, not only easier, but more reliable. This one has not been modified on the one I have here, on the IBM gun. This one has not been modified, and I know it's true to that era, which is great. Also, the hammers might be a little bit different on each one. They did little cutouts, a little machine work on them that are a little bit different. The safety, originally it was a push button safety. And I think they did 3 different changes to the safety. The first 2 were push buttons, and the last one, being this one, is a little paddle flip. And the trigger, the whole trigger assembly, some of them I believe in the later issued ones are milled a little bit differently than others. Now once again, like I said, I am not no expert. This is just by studying and reading on my own, mostly from the internet, some from books, and a lot of it from the website I'm telling you about. These barrel bands right here and bayonet lugs. Once again, these also are going to have a marking on them. In this case right here. And the front sight also, RIA, Rock Island Armory. Now these were made by them. I'm not sure if they made sights during the war or not, but this is probably not an original front sight. It's probably been changed. And I think there was 3 different type of front sights that they also used over the years. The gas ports. Some of the gas ports right here, this is a Rockola. It matches the barrel perfectly. But on some manufacturers, right there in the center of the gas piston itself, you're going to see a letter stamped. In this case, there's not. You will also, on some of them, on the flat part right here, see numbers engraved into that. Once again, it's either going to be in-house, like Inland. I think we're famous for putting, in fact, they had a name. Inland Hieroglyphics, that I can't even speak, they called them. And that was for in-house inspectors and people that actually worked at Inland. And they knew what those numbers were for. I don't. And I'm sure you could find that out in books by picking up books and reading. Also, if you want to know that you have a true U.S. ordnance, a real rifle right here, where the barrel attaches to the receiver, you're going to have witness marks. There's going to be a little notch at the base of the barrel and a little notch on the receiver itself. So when they screwed that barrel in, them lines match up. Once they match up, the barrel's tight, they know that it's in good shape. It's perfect. That's where it's got to go. That's called a witness mark. If you don't have a witness mark on that rifle, if you're going to buy an M1 Carbine for somebody and they won't let you completely take it down to where you get to this point here, they should at least allow you to take the stock off so you can at least see that. Because if those witness marks are not there, you don't have a USGI gun, I can tell you that right now. Also, if those lines do not match up, I would not shoot the rifle. I would make sure you get that rifle to a gunsmith before you fire it, because your headspace could be way out. I mean, you're going to have issues. There's a reason that our government put those witness marks there. I'm trying to think if I left anything out here. Well, the magazines. These little 5-rounders were made when from the Gun Control Act of '68, once again, to bring these guns in, sporterize them, call them hunting rifles. They had these little 5-rounders. These 15-rounders were true to form World War II magazines, 15-rounders. Now when they came out with the M2, which is the fully automatic version, you had the selector, you had semi-auto and full auto selectors on the rifle. It was called the M2 carbine. And if you look at the magazines, the 30-rounders, it will mark right on the back, right here on the back, it will be marked M2. This one's marked M2. This one is not, which, oh, trying to see, I'm having problems seeing myself. These two are M2. This one is not marked at all, which leads me to believe that this is the one that originally came with the playing field when it was bought from the manufacturer. Now, my buddy told me that him and his father had gotten this playing field from the marksmanship program, and after doing some research and reading, playing fields, although they were never made for the U.S. government, for our services, Army, Marines, playing field never made weapons for the U.S., except commercially. They did have some military contracts with some other countries around the world, and somehow some playing fields did end up in shipments that were imported back into this country. So they were mixed up with them somehow, some way, and that's also, you'll see a lot of different USGI parts on some of these playing fields, because once they got to whatever country, somehow they ended up in the hands of the countries that we also gave military aid to. Well, once again, it's a military spec rifle that was broke down, thrown into part bins. So you might find an IBM, an Inland, whatever kind of receiver with a whatever kind of barrel, and all of a sudden, you know, oh, I'm sorry, you could have a Rockola. Once again, the only place you're going to find the name, you will find initials. but the only place you're going to find the serial number is on the receiver. You may end up with a plain field receiver with a Rockola barrel, with a Winchester stock, with whatever, because there are some of them that did get mixed in. This could be very confusing, I know, but the only way that I could tell you guys to be 100% sure about what you're buying is to do your homework. Really do your homework. Now, we know a lot of the guns, if they have this stamp on it right here, the importer's mark, well, you could rest assured that although it does hurt maybe a little the value of the gun, not a lot, a little, you do know that more than likely that gun was used in World War II, then given to whatever country as aid. More than likely, but not always. It's just a kind of it's something that you can never be 100% sure about, but you can kind of whittle things down into your favor. You can also look at marks. If it's too good to be true, guys, it usually is. There are some rifles out there that are complete inlands, that are complete IBMs, that are complete Rockolas, from the stock to the sight, everything on it. But they're very few and far between. Those ones were ones that were given to museums at the time, or given to the vice president of the company as a gift and put into a case and given a letter and you know, magazines with, and it's a showpiece. And there are some of them out there. And there's also some rifles that came back from the war in duffel bags from soldiers. But, you know, from what I'm reading, and I trust this guy Jim at M1 Carbines, BavarianM1Carbines.com, not to the amount that people like to say. You know, everybody's got a grandfather who smuggled an M1 Carbine or an M1 Garand or a German Luger or whatever back into the country. Now, we do know it happened, but if it happened on the scale that you hear everybody talk about it happening, no, it didn't happen like that. So just be careful, guys. Do your homework. I know I'm missing a lot of things here. There's a lot of, if you really want to know what each letter is for, you're going to find different letters and markings, and it'll shock you because you'll think, oh, that's definitely, that letter represents, because it's an I, that's inland. No, it could be something else because there were so many subcontractors, and like I said, the countries they went to, not only went to standing armies, they went to police departments and whatnot, and each one of them put their own markings. Sometimes. Okay, guys, we're going to end this video. I am going to make another one because I've had several requests by a few guys, and a couple of good guys I know pretty well, I'm starting to get to know pretty well, that want me to take this trigger group completely down. It's a very easy thing to do. We'll take the mag release out, the safety, the hammer. We'll take the whole thing down. And the same thing with the bolt. I've had some requests to take this bolt down and the extractor out, and we will do that. And when I do that, I'll go ahead and I'll take the playing field apart, and I'll show you the difference in the roundness on the top of the bolt and some of the things that they have changed. In the modified mag release that is on the playing field that is not on this one right here. And I hope I covered everything, and I'm sorry this is a long video. But guys, when it comes to surplus, military surplus firearms, especially U.S. military surplus rifles, your M1 Carbines, your M1 Garands, it's going to be awful hard to find everything that matches up perfectly. And I've actually heard, and I've read, you can go online right now and type in M1 Carbine matching numbers. And I guarantee you're going to see guys that say, all the numbers match. Well, what do you mean all the numbers? There's only one number. It's right here. The serial number. There's no other numbers to match. So be careful, guys. Be careful with what people tell you. Like I said, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. And we're going to go ahead and end this video because I know it's very long and I know I missed some things, but I hope this helps anybody in you know, out there right now ready to buy an M1 Carbine or looking to buy one. Once again, just do your homework. When it comes to tearing them down or changing parts or anything like that, there's a lot of parts out there, and there's a lot of bogus parts out there too. This rifle's worth a lot more money if I strip it down completely and sell each individual part. Believe me, it is, than it is put together, unfortunately. And because of that, you get a lot of, well, you know how that goes. There's a lot of con artists out there, guys, so just be careful. And just trust in your instinct, in your gut. And I know, because this gun was imported, that this gun meant something to somebody. I'll never know the history. I wish it could talk. But those are just some of the ways to know that you're not getting ripped off, it kind of narrows it down. You'll never be 100% sure, but you could be pretty sure. And you could tell by stampings and markings and whatnot. And if you got somebody out there selling an M1 carbine for $1,000 and it's all inland from the barrel to the stock to everything, the chances are, guys, that's a gun that was bought right here, buy parts and put back together, and they're selling you a story. I'd rather have one that's got mixed parts that I know was in that parts bin, broke down after the war and put back together, because you know what, that's a whole lot more authentic than one that was made right here on, you know, say my countertop. Anyway, YouTube, if I can help you guys anyway, please do not hesitate to contact me. Have a very happy new year. God bless and thank you. Good night.